Morning.
And I have to give people a few seconds because when we start the webinar, then people are allowed to log in, and then it takes a couple of minutes, seconds to log in, and so I usually fill like 10 seconds or so by talking like this and then saying hi.
Wow. You know, it is 8:30 in the morning my time. Generally, I'm a morning person, but you are way hyper for me this morning.
It is. I am jet lagged as fuck too. So.
Okay, so for those kind of recordings, I can use language. Okay, good. We'll get all British and sailor on
everything I do is R-rated. So, hi.
Hi.
How are
good
you?
Morning.
Thanks for joining me. So, thanks everybody. Coming to you live from Moscow and San Francisco.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Awesome.
People have a common misperception that I actually lived in San Francisco just because of OneDome, but no, I actually have been living in LA for 15 years. I just got stuck for a second up there, which was fine. I'm back now.
Awesome. So Leila, you were the chief marketing officer of OneDome, right? Is that your?
That's right. Yeah, I was one of
the founding team.
One of the co-founders, and played. My main role was CMO, though. You're familiar with startups. You kind of put on a bunch of hats. Though they were contradictory, you play the COO, which is all about saving money, and then, the CMO is about spending money. So it was a bit weird. Happens to be a little multiple personality. It works out. But yeah. CMO is the right title.
Yeah, cool. And you've got a deep marketing background. Talk a little bit about, because, one of the things that I rail on about, and this often happens in startups, is marketing is like the last role to be filled often in a startup. And a lot of startups kind of feel it's a bit of a luxury, which it isn't. But so the companies that I wind up, hey Maria, thanks for joining. The companies I wind up working with often have no marketing function whatsoever. And so I was really thrilled when we met because we could talk marketing. And so what's your background and how did you get here?
Yeah, great question. So yes, I'd say consistently over the last 20, 25 years, marketing's been a consistent through thread. I started in the late 90s in technology, building, not me personally coding these systems, but effectively building large .coms and CRMs and content management for the big telcos and other companies in England. .com bubble burst. That led into a very random segue of being asked to set up and run the largest, at the time, legally licensed venue in London, which going from tech and .com to, operations of a 30,000 square foot space where
we did legally licensed, you mean alcohol?
Well, when I say legally licensed, I mean the legal license capacity was 3,000 people, but the venue could support about 4,500. So at the time, officially, it was the largest licensed venue. Yeah, alcohol and other entertainment and stuff. That was an interesting segue because events has been part of my life as well, but never really thought of it as business. Learned a lot about operating venues, running large-scale events, especially the large productions. After a few years of that, really felt too young, too early, too dangerous, a world that I probably should step out and get back into a more, this is the wrong term, but corporate-ish, a little bit less crazy and risque in some ways.
Someplace where drugs weren't a part of the nightly engagement at work.
I did nothing like this on camera. Early 20s, what can I say? Those were the days. Almost 25. Oof. Anyway, feeling old suddenly. Moved out here to the US, actually. Started a web shop with a friend. That quickly became, it was 2004, early days of web early days of web as a platform for brands. So thinking of it as another channel. We quickly realized and aligned ourselves with the big ad agencies, the Crispin Porters, the JWTs, you name it. None of them had digital really capabilities in-house, and a lot of them had sold some great ideas to Mini and other brands. And so they kept coming to us, and we basically built a model around that. The company sold to Sapient in 2007. And I jumped, came went to an agency called Blitz in LA, smaller. I'm much better at growing businesses than sort of coming in at a 500 or 5,000 person company and then trying to figure out what to do at that point. So grew Blitz to about 120 people in a few years. We did a lot, and this is where I think, you know, my passion in sort of cross-platform came to play. We did a lot of cross-platform work in video games, especially with creating the OTT mobile and desktop experiences for franchises like Halo, Gears of War, Call of Duty, Mortal Kombat, a number of titles back then where it was how do you the story and the connection point was how do you keep people engaged in a title or with an IP that only drops every 2 years? How do you keep them in that world? How do you ensure that that sort of loyalty and affinity remain, but also continue to recruit newcomers? So if you think of your hardcore core and mass audiences, it sort of gave a real world extension and a sort of community aspect. It was interesting. It was those early days of how do we build community around these titles. And then I sort of shifted when I left Blitz. I decided to spend more time in entertainment, went over to Trailer Park, which is the largest entertainment agency in the country. And they ended up working on some of the biggest titles with the biggest studios from Warner and Universal to Sony, and I mean, name them. They're everyone in there. In my experience and in my work in entertainment, I continued on to about 3 years ago. I started doing a lot more experiential and started paying attention to audience behavior and realizing that consumers were shifting, especially in entertainment. The traditional cinema model was dying despite box office numbers going up. What you were seeing is the number of tickets sold were going down. So it's just, you know, things get more expensive. So the value ends up sounding quite amazing. But if you look at consistently, number of tickets sold have declined over the last 15 plus years. And in around the same time, 2016, this was when Museum of Ice Cream and Meow Wolf both came into the market, both sort of blew up right off the bat. And I think it was just a validation of people want more. People want something different. They want to engage. They want to participate. And I was just paying attention to all these brands, all these studios doing these great activations, super fun, like spending all this money, but it was to a very small audience. Didn't really go beyond that. And I thought that's where there's an opportunity. And I was sort of burning out from the agency world, to be honest with you.
It's a grind.
It is a grind. And when your role is a growth role, it's very hard to sometimes, you have to take risks to shift significantly. And it's often hard for owners to sort of get out of their own way to take those risks. And I get the fear, I get it, but it's hard to make dramatic changes unless you make dramatic changes.
And I think the reason for that is because, you've gotten to a certain point in your business where you feel like you have something to lose. And that's it's the fear that stops you from changing. And, I've been there in a couple of different businesses that I've started and owned. And it's like, I think disrupting yourself is the hardest thing to do in business, because you just wait for your competition to do it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a smaller agency, that's definitely very true. A bigger one is so set in its own ways that trying to convince people of change when it's kind of working for each department, it might not be working as a whole company. It's really hard and it's frustrating. And all I've ever wanted to do my whole life and continue to is just great experiences, be it, digital experiences, be it campaigns, be it, actual real world experiences like we did for OneDome. So when I left, very consciously left the agency. Well, there's a story there that maybe not a web one, but I actually ended up in the ER thinking it was an ulcer that had perforated. That I thought I was so stressed out that I thought I had an ulcer that had burst. And in that moment, as I'm waiting to get diagnosed, and I'm just in absolute agony in the waiting room of the ER, I just made a decision. I was like, that's it, I'm done. Nobody should endure this kind of stress for anyone else's business, let alone their own business. I mean, this is crazy. And next thing you know, it's my appendix. But it's either way, my decision was made, and I left with a plan, and the plan being, really clear. My background has been at the intersection of entertainment, technology, and content. That content has been everything from digital to art, and I really wanted to make sure that the next thing was truly at that intersection and really encompassed all those things. I really believe that's possible. So that's sort of what I put on paper, and it sort of started happening. I got a couple of calls, did a little work with an agency who was working with the Void, started getting really into the VR world, learning more about that. And then I worked a little bit with Brent at 2-Bit, and sort of as they're approaching and we're looking at their launch of their park. And AR for me has been something that I've dabbled in since 2008. I think the first AR project was done with Blitz, and it was, I believe, it was Mattel, or it was one of our toy clients. And it was a web-based, character card. Think of it, you put it in front of your webcam, and, the idea was that you had a physical toy, and then you used the card, and that would open up a digital world. And it was a way to bring the real and the digital together back then. So it's sort of the opposite of what we're doing now. But it was way too soon. I mean, you think it's still way too soon, and that was way
that was way too soon. Yeah.
Way too soon. But I fell in love with the potential of the tech and what that could do, and how that could create these dimensional layers. And as I'm working with different folks, OneDome came into my world through a friend who was one of the original co-founders. OneDome had a slightly different vision. I mean, the vision mission as a company was always the same. I don't think that ever changed. It was really trying to sort of create a movement through the arts and open up the arts to larger demographics and really build community through creativity and collaboration. And the actual sort of trajectory was slightly different. Initially, there was a dome model, but I mean, the name OneDome and domes actually have nothing to do with each other, which is kind of ironic. But domes were part of the original story. And it was just, realizing domes are not the easiest to execute. It's an expensive proposition. Dropping one anywhere, is a few $1 million if you think about it. And it's a lot of work. It's like putting up a building in some ways, and and having to strike that down. But one day I was sitting in the dome, and it was a real mix of random stuff going on in there. There was I believe it could have been Android Samskara sort of spinning around and in 360 inside of the dome as in the projections. And then we had these props. These were all sort of different activities. We were sort of R&Ding a bunch of things. And these props, there was some trees and then some random objects. And I say this because I was literally sitting on, one of the dome chairs, which is like a deck chair because you're lying back. And I have a HoloLens on at this point, and there's a manta ray flying around in AR. And I just saw, there was a moment where I was that moment of connection where you just see all these layers and there's content. None of them matched at all, but it was just interesting to see suddenly the depth of layers and this mixing of realities, and lo and behold, within a few weeks of that vision and this idea, and I was like, oh, well, this is mixed reality. We found the space on Market Street, which happened to have a river and rocks and a waterfall. I mean, you saw it. So when you kind of have a vision like that and an idea, and then you find a space that almost begs to be a layer of that reality, we just felt this was, it was sort of, let's do this. And that's where the true mixed reality, the Unreal Garden vision came to life. Was, sort of having that idea and then seeing a space that looked like that and being able to visualize, well, if you dress up the space and add more physical, and then what happens if we add in different sound layers, projections, and AR. So that became the first product experience, and the driver behind the idea of making Market Street be one of many what the hope was, to have many locations, with one being sort of your template. And so I think that probably also leads to some of the challenges we faced as things went on. Because when you if you look at where our peers are in the space in some ways, if you look at the kind of money that's been raised, if you take a Meow Wolf at 150 million and, 2bit at whatever, 40, 50 million by now, I'm not sure the exact numbers, but these are numbers that come with a hell of a responsibility and a commitment to, no, this isn't just for the one location. This is now we expect several and planned and start going. And it's so frigging stressful to just get one location and to get it right. It's like, it's all good and well to have the money to open 6 at a time. But we're doing things, for us especially, we were doing things that had never been done before.
And, I had that conversation with Brent from 2bit, just as they were getting ready to open their first one. And, and they were talking about he was out scouting locations already. And I'm like, dude, you haven't even opened your first location yet. And, he's getting pressure from the investors to expand. And I'm like, you're just going to replicate all your mistakes. And then you have to go fix them in 5 different locations. And, and for a number of reasons, they've slowed down the rollout, and it's given him a chance. Now he said, a couple of weeks ago on this show, he's like, yeah, it's still in beta, and they've been open for a year now, or over a year. Yeah, the operations, these big complex things that have never been done before. And what you guys are doing was like another level of complexity because of the emerging technology and the fact that it was art and like, how do you describe it? Like, it's really easy. 2bit, the micro amusement park, you can imagine what that is. It's a really small amusement park, and I go and I have rides and I have fun, right?
Even that's hard to market, though. It took them a while to get the right kind of imagery, videos, and content where it doesn't look posed, it doesn't look like staged, right? You don't want it to look like a staged, beautiful, produced shot. You want it to you want people to genuinely be having fun, and that excitement and happiness and joy and whatever is showing. That's your best marketing tool. At the end of the day, if you can show that, or be a museum of ice cream, we just have really a lot of colors, and people, colors. Look, you go to their Instagram online. It just slaps you in the face. It's like, oof, and it not in a bad way. It's like, that's it. So if you
I get a little bile in my throat when I go by there.
Look, I could sit and spend 20 minutes on the Museum of Ice Cream and my frustrations there. Look, it's. They found a model that worked for a specific audience. They were the audience, and they knew how to speak to their audience, the millennials, and they did it. And they're now raising, I saw another ridiculous amount of money they just raised or something to do more. But there was nothing else there, so they got it. And the color really helped. If you don't have the color, and you don't have it's still even hard with 2bit, right? You think about it, it's beautiful inside. It's high end, it's polished. It's not necessarily the first thing you think about when you think amusement park, running around. You kind of, so it's just making sure that there's so many well, actually, there's a bunch of things I would have done different. I would have given away tickets the first 3 months.
Well, before we get there, hold on. Let's make sure. I'm not sure everybody knows what OneDome is. So I want you to describe OneDome for people who for somebody that said, what's OneDome? I want you to tell how you would describe it. And then I'm going to refresh my browser, and we're going to watch a video to kind of give people some more context.
Sure.
So what's OneDome?
OneDome was an immersive entertainment company with, the idea was to have multiple locations. So with a single location that started in San Francisco that housed 3 experiences. These experiences were founded on the basis of art. So all the content were brought together by different digital artists and actually traditional artists as well, to create 3 ticketed experiences. The first mixed reality experience, and when I say the first of, I mean truly mixing multiple layers of reality. We were first to market in terms of having physical sound, projections, AR, and even haptics by E3 this year, which we can talk about at the end. We had a second experience that had no headset, which was liminal. It was 10,000 square feet of what I call Burning Man in a building. And it was 15 interactive and immersive rooms interconnected, mainly projection mapping. And then we had Feast, which was our immersive dining experience, which you were able to join in, which was a 32-person seated dinner 5 courses with interactive projections that augmented the dining experience itself. OneDome was really an artist collective. We wanted to be a platform where our locations and the experiences themselves were such that artists could plug in and to be able to help artists really come to market, because this new medium of AR, VR, and immersive has opened the door up to all the creators out there, animators, designers, others who might not have been perceived or seen or saw themselves as an artist, to be able to bring that talent into the world, into the masses.
And the accessibility of the tools seems to be enabling, so many people to do so much in it. And just actually 2 days ago I'm here in Russia at this event called the Skolkovo Open Innovation Forum, and there was a company there showing basically WordPress for VR, and they had
I saw them. I saw them at XRS last week.
They have an office in San Francisco, and it's just like it's amazing how accessible they're making all this stuff.
Yeah, it's incredibly accessible, and yet we're still not there. It's more like it's got to be in the hands of the right people. So I think what's happening and what's beautiful and what we've seen and continues beyond OneDome, because the technology that built the Unreal Garden was created by Enklu, ENKLU. They are the software company behind the Unreal Garden and a number of other mixed reality experiences now. And what they've done is they've built a creator platform, and they've opened an AR makerspace in San Francisco that allows people to go, not only you can sign up to the platform, and it's really easy. Even I literally make AR experiences all day long. I don't have that much time in my day, but it's that simple that it sits cloud-based, it sits above a Unity or another game engine, and allows you to sort of build these experiences and go live into experience. And because it's immersive HoloLens based, they've opened a space that provides access to the lenses. So you can come in, you can actually create in person, and then even share with people who are buying tickets to actually experience it in the space at the same time. So the creator market is incredibly important, and I'm glad that so many people are sort of opening up to that market right now, because we need content. So it's great that once the people come and buy the headsets, they need somewhere to go, or they need something to see. So
I'm going to show I've got a couple of videos off of YouTube. One's a short one that shows the garden, and then one shows liminal. So let's just dive in real quick. They're super short.
So this is looking through the HoloLens at this point. Some of this is real, some is not. So the various of the names, represent different artists. We had physical props, and then we had digital, AR
and you'd
props.
be able to touch things, and a window would pop up, and you'd be able to learn about, psilocybin mushrooms and Alan Watts quotes and all of these amazing kind of.
We didn't go that deep with any of that, but yeah, that was the goal. We had two interactions. The eye, which requires you to kind of stand still, and take a breath. It's intentional, actually, to be able to actually activate and hold still enough to get something activated with the eye is kind of hard. So you'd find these little I Chings and these quotes around that, at the end of it, you'd get rewarded. And then the finger would actually, pretty much everything was interactive with the finger. And so that was fun. It was a multiplayer experience. It still exists, by the way. It went to E3. E3 brought us over in June to do an Unreal Garden experience, which was 6,000 square feet. Great video by a Chinese news team, actually, on YouTube somewhere on that experience. But it's evolved significantly and continues to live on. It's going to Brazil in May for a festival in Brazil that's called Geek Nation, I think it's called.
And is it Enklu, the developer, that's taking this around, or who's?
They are now, yeah. So full disclosure, advisor on Enclu. I'm on the board of advisors and have been from day one. It's, I believe in the tech and the software and what they're doing. And so, yes, they, before OneDome went under, Enclu acquired the IP for the Unreal Garden. And then, and they've since built other experiences. But the Unreal Garden at E3 got so much attention that like this Brazilian company and a number of other companies basically want to take it around and tour it because it's so different. We had 50 people in experience at E3 at one time. 10 minutes at a time, 50 people, multiplayer. So you see what you're doing, but you also have your own individual experiences. We added haptics, which was really cool because we used ultra haptics. We had these pedestals that had these AR orbs. And as you popped an orb, you'd actually get the resistance, which tripped people out. It was great. I just love just standing there and watching.
Yeah, for people that don't know what ultra haptics is, it's ultrasound physical feedback. And so they use these ultrasound emitters that they can shape in all kinds of shapes. And so it can make you feel, you can kind of feel anything, but there's nothing there. It's just air. And yeah, it's really amazing.
It's tripping. Actually, let's get it right here in case Vince is watching this thing. It's Ultra Leap now. They just rebranded.
Leap Motion bought Ultra Haptics and
Ultra Haptics, Leap
Motion, correct.
But, yeah. So I mean that was a trip because people are feeling this in midair and there's nothing there. But the cool part about it was each one of those orbs had a color, and as you pop it, a projection would activate on the wall in front. There was a rock in front, and if 4 people came together, there was an Easter egg. So it wasn't necessarily that obvious, but it was 4 people actually each at the same time hit the orbs, then this beautiful projection would activate, and this butterfly, and I mean, super fun. And that's just 5 or 6 layers of reality. There's so much more you can do, sense and other sort of haptic touch.
And so I want to play the other video. I got one more, and I'll put it in the link too in case it's not coming up. And this is Liminal, which was the other major component of OneDome.
I felt a great disturbance in the force.
This is not our video though. I think this was a user's video, but I love it. I love user generated cool videos. This was
great disturbance in the force.
Kind of a bummer, I have to say. Oh, I don't hear your sound.
It's about a 2-minute video. And there's a whole bunch of really good videos if you just Google OneDome on YouTube.
Yeah, OneDome's YouTube channel, I haven't taken it down yet, and the website's still up too. So it still serves a purpose, actually. people do reach out.
So basically you built this immersive art installation, right? Immersive interactive art installation. That's how I described it to people. I don't know if that's how you described it. When people asked me what it was, that's kind of the best I could do with it. And so how much of that, so how do you deal with the challenge as a marketing person, right? How do you deal with the challenge of communicating to people what the fuck it is and why they should buy a ticket?
Man. As a marketing person, don't ever do something that doesn't exist. No, it's a great question, and I'm going to answer it in a direct way of what we did initially, and also today what I would recommend doing instead. Looking back, first of all, before we even had the experience, think about it. We moved into the building on May 1st. We opened October 8th. That's 6 months date to date to build. No, that's upstairs. Downstairs then opened in December, which was Liminal. But that's an intense amount of time to not only be doing the physical, but the digital and iterating and not, being able to really test. We literally, opening, or we called it a soft launch. I mean, the whole period
Right.
was a soft launch. I mean, it really, I would have gone October to March, I would have called that entire 6 months a soft launch, because that really was the time we learned the most and iterated the best. The challenges at the beginning, before you've even got content to put out there, is how do you communicate what it is? I mean, what's AR, first of all, to people? What's mixed reality? And also, do people care about art as the leading thing? And that was, one of the—
And what's that
challenges,
intersection of the Venn diagram, right? Of the people who understand the technology and the people that care about art. Like, is that like—
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's there. That's true. And at the same time, you're appealing— Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. Look, going back would not have led with art per se. You need to show it, first of all. So if you can't show it,
and that was that was one of the questions. So like Alex, even now, he's like, the projections are beautiful, so nobody's wearing headsets, and because so just to answer your question, Alex, the Magic Garden was HoloLens. And so it was a HoloLens 1, and you'd go through and you're looking at these scenes that are a physical scene, and then it's being augmented with all kinds of colors and motion and butterflies and fairies and things like that. And then you could use gestures to interact with things and then get more information about them. And then the liminal was all projection mapping art, which is the second video that you just saw. So like, and one of the other questions is like, how do you market this stuff, other than using video? That was actually the question. And I'm like, I don't know if you can.
Well, so it takes time. You can now, I'll tell you. And I think it's part of it is being able to capture more and more in lens, and putting people out there. So I think at the beginning, we leaned heavily on the art side because we couldn't and didn't have the content on the experience side to be able to push out. And we're hoping that some of the artists, including Android Jones, who has a huge following in this space of visionary art, we were hoping that would drive sort of awareness and attendance. And it wasn't the case. I personally see the opportunity that for art in this space and how it changes art. I don't think the mass consumer at this point still cares necessarily. Museums are looking for ways to invite new audiences or to make it more interesting, and are using immersive tech in that way. That still doesn't, that's still not necessarily addressing this is art. It's more like, hey, we're doing this cool thing, come, and by the way, now you're going to have an art experience. I think that's my recommendation, would have been started with this really cool thing and almost played to how difficult it is to explain. It's almost like, use that to your advantage in the story. Create the story around that. We did right off the bat provide sort of what we called the roller coaster photo shot challenge. So here's the problem we had at the beginning is we actually were incredibly successful November through. So the Unreal Garden got a decent amount of success and attention at the beginning it opened. And then in December, we opened Liminal, which tripled the capacity and opened up to other audiences. Now, when people are coming in for one experience, they're buying tickets for both. So we were sold out December, January, leading into February. And I'm saying, a ridiculous sold out, like lines around the block on Market Street going down Mission, which is crazy, to imagine. And which is also why people were so shocked when we suddenly went away, because they saw all of the success, and I can explain a lot of it. So, the challenge with, on one hand, we've got all this success happening. On the flip side, we've got a bigger challenge. One is, okay, so launching a product and even a business that's based on technology that's not made for consumer market is a very dangerous thing to do. That being the HoloLens isn't made for this. We've since made it make for this. It literally, like I said, E3 had 50. We saw 7,000 people in 3 days.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about so HoloLens, for someone who's done VR AR, quickly goes from amazing to annoying. because the field of view is so small. For those of you who haven't done it, it's literally like looking at the world through a keyhole. And the gestures are not very intuitive, and making it work is it doesn't bring joy. You know, like Steve Jobs with the first iPhone, the browser is like, it's really joyful to use, and the HoloLens is like 90% frustration. And so how much did that affect word of mouth, buzz? Like, if the tech just worked, what would the outcome have been different?
Okay, but let's talk about what work means, because I don't know that the field of view was the thing that was limiting. That became a thing, one of the many things. I think, when we had our most success, when I'm telling you, when we sold out, was at the beginning, when we had the most challenges with the tech. So, because you're learning, right? So now you've got 600 people per day. You're pushing through technology that is not made for that. So the hardware itself, let's just take the hardware for a second, was burning out, was heating up, the battery wasn't handling it. This is, the HoloLens at the end of the day, it's a computer, but it's like a mobile phone. So you're building a game like you're building a mobile game. And because there was no playbook ahead of time, Enclu, were iterating as fast as they could based on real feedback. And it took a good 2 to 3 months, like I said, maybe even 6, to get to the place where the stability of the software and the hardware was perfect, right? Where it didn't break because there was too much content in there, but we learned to reveal content based on proximity instead of all the content coming out at once. There was a lot of lessons that lightened the load on the device that allowed the device to function properly. And also lessons on our part on fixing the device. Now, so the reason I bring this up is because now you've got people waiting and delays happening. Okay, so now you got people being pissed. Okay, you've got they're waiting an hour or two just to get into this experience. They are pissed and they're going in with not the best mindset. So if they don't understand the difference between AR and VR, and they don't sort of go with the aspect of the field of view, it becomes a challenge. At the beginning, we used to do these elaborate onboarding stories. Alex's question I'll get to in a minute. These elaborate onboarding stories, this history of the Unrolled Garden, what it is. And, and I'd even talk about the field of view as look at it more as a lens to lean in deep or step back, and the reason the video you showed at the beginning was few months into operations, where we added so much content that you felt so immersed that the field of view became irrelevant. That's a key to, our initial intent was to use projection, the physical layer, for continuity of creative, right? But until you got the fidelity of the content and the experience perfect, it's hard to see. So now you're solving multiple challenges that are coming up. People are upset. They're going in there upset. And they've got expectations, and they're like, well, this is the worst VR experience I've ever had. I'm like, well, that's okay, not a VR experience. But, and you get frustrated. The problem is once they've paid, whether you say, I'm sorry, we're at the beginning, it's the beta, this is new, blah, 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 but they paid money. So it goes back to what I said earlier is fucking give it away for the first 3 months. Give it away for a few reasons. When people are invited into something for free, they feel special. They will most likely, 99% of the time, this is just based on me doing this for a long time, they will likely post about it because they feel special. Secondarily, if the experience was good or bad, they will post about it because they did not pay for the experience. So you are now getting your advocates early on, inviting them in. I mean, it's not like we were full at the beginning, but we could have given away a bunch at the beginning. The first month was not sold out. The first 6 weeks were not sold out. So I think giving away, leveraging whoever you invite, whether you give it away as the first, X amount of people come in, or you do a competition, whatever it is, you make them feel part of the process. You get them to, you enroll them in that way. If you haven't solved these challenges and you're going to market and you're claiming to be the first of, and you're still charging a lot of money, which we were, in comparison to other things. How much was it? What did you charge
for a ticket?
I think initially we started at $33, and then we ended at averaging about 25. but even that is high, and it's just incomparable to like the market. I mean, Museum of Ice Cream charges like $40 or something, and you don't get the same, but at the same time, they did a few things differently. One lesson I learned from them a little too late on the marketing side is I wouldn't necessarily put money into paid media in a business like this. I'll tell you what. I mean, yes, do some social paid media, but the kind of money you might drop into ads, mobile video, or other across the web, I would actually take that budget and put it to influencers and find a handful of influencers, one or two that really have the right following, that are going to create a video like you just showed similarly or whatever, but have a million or two following that also attract certain age groups. That's the other thing, right? So you learn a lot of things over time. So we wanted to give an artful, classy, elegant feel. Artful, classy, and elegant don't work for the general public. They want colorful, bouncy, plastic, run around, feels kind of crazy. If it's heady, which is fine, but if it's heady, you're not going to get them going, oh, right now I got to get my phone out and post. They're still thinking about it. They're still thinking about it, leaving, they're thinking about it, they want to have a conversation about it. And that's great, by the way. We are doing right. That's exactly what we wanted to achieve, but that's not what's going to keep you in business right away, And so, there was a question of like Alex here about the reviews. Yes, at the beginning, we were getting some terrible reviews. Also, on reviews, my mistake. I mean, I got it was very short-lived, but I get frustrated and find myself answering reviews, and then don't do that. Don't ever do it. Never do that.
Do it. You just take it.
Don't do it.
Apologize and then take it offline. Don't get defensive. That's the last thing you can do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't get defensive, but there are trolls out there who look for whatever the response is, and then they'll go at it. It's amazing humans out there, but they live to just do this stuff with people. I would say that, so yes, spend some money on an influencer, depending on the type of place you have. I mean, a VR arcade, or it's different. You're specifically going after a different audience. And, we were trying to go after everyone. We were trying to be family friendly. We were also doing something that didn't incur violence, shooting zombies or other shooters of any kind. And we were hoping that would go down well with the parents, especially moms. And it did, but here's what it takes time to create awareness. Meow Wolf is an exception. Okay,
let's talk about that. So how do you see Meow Wolf, and how do you see the contrast between what you were doing and what they do, and why are they being so successful?
Yeah, I mean, so Meow Wolf was around 6-7 years pre the Santa Fe location. They were an artist collective that had been around, had been doing stuff. They already had an audience. Something that Vince and I talked about, Vince Cadlebach, the CEO, or former CEO, I think he just stepped down, of Meow Wolf, is, they started with an audience. So if you don't start with an audience, you need to build an audience first. And the quickest way to go there is really give it away, invite people in, and not just influencers or early adopters. That's one thing. One of the things that happened to us, which is one of those things that it's unlucky, is in the sort of, as we were at this up curve, right? Come like February, March, we were sort of in this upswing. We'd been like, numbers were like 80,000 at this point. I mean, 90,000 maybe by then. And we had this upswing, and I thought, great, double down on media here. Let's do lookalikes, which no longer exist, thanks to our both countries' nonsense play. But the lookalike, Facebook lookalikes, what was useful for them, for a marketer like myself in this context, was you take the audience that had come and you go, okay, we want more of these kind of people. So let's, build lookalikes off them and then promote to that. Now, what you've got to be really careful of is ensuring diversity in that audience base from the beginning. Because what we didn't realize was that, believe it or not, core 80, 90,000 people were 80% the same type of audience. So it wasn't like it was 30% teenagers and 30%, community, industry, and 30%, I don't know, people in this, who are into that. It was literally our industry types, community, early adopters, that sort of thing. And so when we pulled the lookalikes and we did it, and then we threw all this money into an empty tavern. It's not empty. It's all the people are there. They're listening. Our web traffic went up significantly, but conversions went down because suddenly it's the same kind of people who have come, or they came with others. And so that was a big lesson of make sure your audience, if you are, especially when you're inviting people in, and depending on the city you live in, the diversity of audience segments is really key to ensure you get that, word of mouth diversity.
And so what you're saying is that you had a narrow audience that you were able to define. Was that audience just not big enough to support the business, or what? Because I always tell people, go narrow, understand your market, and just go all in on a market. And and part of the challenge is defining who do you want to be. I know a lot of businesses that try to be everything to all people, and they wind up being nothing to anyone, and they fail. And so I'm kind of curious as to what your experience with that was.
Well, we didn't want to try and be everyone. We needed, here's the challenge. Okay, so other things. So guys, whoever's listening and whoever's doing an LB, it's first of all, you need obviously a buffer when you're doing something that's never been done before, because just know that 50% of the stuff is it's just going to blow up in your face, and you're going to go, oh, wow, I tested all I could for that, but until you put real people through it, doesn't really come to be. So always have your buffer, but bigger than that, have a runway, and a 12 to 18 month runway. And we were challenged. We were sort of, that was a challenge for us, because we always under-raised, and not intentionally went in and said, let's raise less than we need, but rather we were being very cautious about how we raised. And that was the challenge. And I think that's the difference. And when we talked at the beginning of a Meow Wolf and a 2-bit and raising all this money, it brings all this expectation. And our CEO's decision, which I totally support and understand where he's coming from, is let's raise smart. Let's raise what we need as we need it, and make San Francisco the best it can be, iterate off it, make it a template, and then use that, leverage it and then go across other cities. We are basically, we ended up total raising about 6 million in total. And I think, and this was a couple of different pivots and iterations of OneDome, right, before it got to where it did. And then, and we hit a lull in ticket sales in April and May. I mean, so badly so. Here's the other challenge. Here's the other thing. Guys, anyone listening, please start small. No need, even if you have a 20 or 30,000 square foot building, no need to be 7 days a week. Build your audience and your momentum. Open
really
2 days
that was
a
one of the
week.
keys. That was one of the keys, I believe, in zero latency success in Melbourne, is that when they first opened, they were only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they only do 4 players at a time, and they did 1 game an hour. And so there was real scarcity around the tickets, and you had to book it 6 weeks in advance, and that just built this momentum of this thing that scarcity builds demand, and so. And I think what happens is, I think that, and if you're undercapitalized, it's really hard to do that. You're just, it's fear driven, and you're not going to be, but it's really important if you can get away with it.
Totally. And look, would we have gotten funded if we would? And I'm not saying we weren't being genuine. Of course we were being genuine. We were putting forward a plan the best as we felt could be executed on, and sales, ticket sales and so on. But I think we were way overly ambitious from day one in our numbers. And the investment should have gone into just filling the place up with non-paying customers to learn a lot more than we did, and to really sort of iterate and make it great, and have them be your advocates. The other thing is, you want to, when you're looking for money, please look for aligned investors, especially on your lead side of things. You want people who actually can help you in the business if it's done. Whether your business is going great, but they're strategic investors, whether it's real estate, right, if that's part of the business, or it's technology in whatever way.
Or content. There's all kinds of
content.
yeah. And the good news is,
so
those are the people investing. Those are the ones actually investing in the market now. It seems like so. You know, so the good news is that's happening a lot now.
Yeah. The good news, yes, it is, and I think, and it's really important, because when you hit troubled times, if they don't understand the business or they don't have some value to, you know, to pushing it, they kind of go suddenly disappear. It's like, hello, aren't you our investors? Can you help us?
They boot you out the door.
No, but I mean, they do that too. You know, we so going back to the start small is, you know, part of running out of cash was our own doing by our overheads were so high at the beginning. I mean, think of a spot right on Market Street, that in itself. Think of, you know, $5,000 devices, and we had 100. Alex asked a question earlier. By the time we got it right in June at E3, we were running 50 devices concurrently. We had 100 devices on the floor, 50 were running concurrently, 40 to 50. So, you know, but think of that. These are devices that either you're renting or owning, but at the time we were renting too, which is costing us even more because, you know, there's a new device coming to market. We're not going to go and spend $500,000 on hardware until we validate the actual thing. So I think that is key. So, I mean, understanding and limiting and minimizing costs at the beginning that are overhead holding back on staffing. First of all, by the way, I can talk to everybody about onboarding. Do not require onboarding people to onboard people. It should all be done in lens. It all needs to be intuitive. If you have to have 15 staff members to run an experience, you're doing something very wrong. And it's like, you want docents there, you want people to support. Ultimately, you don't want to handhold people. You want to allow for people to explore and experience. Social learning is really key here. Right. So it's like we could have done. Yeah.
And if I can jump on that, you know, let people discover how to use it. Like that first time user experience is something that we just don't see enough of in VR. I did a game recently and there was like 6 screens of text at the beginning of the game that I had to read to set the story. And I'm like, I don't want to read 6 screens of text in VR. I don't want to read 6 screens of text on anything.
Right.
And so, like let people explore as a means for doing it. Walk them into it. There's just not enough of that.
And by the way, for everyone listening, post yourself. I spent hours sitting at the cafe out the exit of these experiences and would pull people randomly and sit them down and say, do you have 5 minutes? I just want to ask you questions. How was that for you? Ask questions and also have them help you find the right words to market. You know, to how to market. What would you call this? What was the experience for you? What would the words used? Use them. Don't come in. I can claim it for myself. I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but with the arrogance of I know what the hell I'm doing. I've done this for 20 years. No, you don't. Okay, let's be clear. Unless you've been doing direct marketing for 20 years, it's different to brand marketing and pushing. But if you're selling a ticket to a consumer to come through, just throw all of what you know out the window for a second and be humble about it because you are going to get schooled. And that's what happened on some levels. And I'm grateful because there's no MBA that teaches that.
Well, there might be. There wasn't when we were going to school.
There might be. That before you know. There was one other point. Oh, and okay, so venues. Okay, if you actually, 2 things. The scarcity thing. Don't position yourself ever as a permanent location, ever. You know, you could, the venue might be there forever, but you always
scarcity and urgency.
It creates urgency. People are like, oh, urgency is key. The other thing is, let's see. So there's urgency. I was going to say, oh yeah, if you have a venue and it's a space, the way you want to see it is eventually 70% of that revenue is tickets and 30% is other things, F&B and whatever. We have F&B, not really, and it's probably a longer conversation than this call. But what we should have done, and events is another part of it. And OneDome is a unique space, and we should have from the get-go. We shouldn't have waited to like do events as part of a filler, but from the get-go, we should have started driving corporate event sales and other things because that's how you subsidize your revenue right off the bat. That's where you can get 7 to plus figures right out of the gate. per year to really operate and take a breath while you
if
figure
30
out
or 40% of your revenue is not coming from group sales and corporate, you're doing something wrong. And then the next question is, how do you do it? And the problem is you got to hire a salesperson that's going to go out, and their job 7 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever, is to go out and bring in corporate sale business. And that means you have to hire somebody, and you have to pay them, and you have to invest in it. And, again, if you're bootstrapping, you might not want to hire that person, but if you don't, yeah, it's hard to fill those Tuesday afternoons, man.
Yeah. And definitely, some of the other things is, we're all competent people, and we can all wear many hats. There are certain roles you don't want to basically have one person doing like multiple. And those would be in an operational capacity, especially with a venue, sort of being able to bring someone in. If you're running a venue, think of it like an amusement park or a hotel, or you're running a location, and there's common sense and then there's experience. And so bringing people who come from that world is really important.
Totally.
As far
Alex is asking about how do you go about getting group sales? Like you should be active on LinkedIn. You should be cold calling. You should be advertising in the local business journal. There's a million things you can do.
Yeah, look, local business journal. There's a lot of websites. I'm not sure about Australia, but in America, there's a lot of websites that are like Peerspace and other things. Everything has become a disruptive. This is disruptive industry. Everything is monetizable now. So literally, you can list your space for, across so many different types of websites. Definitely get on the phone. Create a one-sheeter, have a one-side website. Oh, don't try and be clever online. Use very simple words. Stop trying to be fancy. I mean, I'm talking about myself. Tried to make it really, it's like people don't understand. They're like, what am I coming into? Eventually, my words were like 2 floors of fun and mind-bending fun and something else, which changes because it's like, okay, I'm in for that. I don't know what that means, but I'm in for that versus, a mixed reality experience that does da-da-da-da-da.
And so let's talk about that. Something I rail on all the time is about not marketing the technology, marketing the feeling that you want the people to have when they're there. And so what was your journey there? It sounds like you started out talking about mixed reality and HoloLens and all this other stuff. And what did you learn across that?
Yeah, definitely don't lead with the hardware or the tech ever. Definitely, it's about the experience and the content you want. So it's one, leading with the sort of USBs, the connection point, right? So what's unique about this? Well, it's an experience where 30, 40, 50 people can can be in at the same time, can see what each other is doing, can even collaborate, connect, So there's that, which is interesting. I think we should have. And it wasn't, and maybe I was a little cautious, and I don't know why, because who am I offending at this point? But, leading with, this is not VR. This is so different from VR. It's something that nobody's experienced before. At the time, at least we could have said that. 99% of the people, we could have sold a ticket for people to just put on a HoloLens, for crying out loud, because that was fascinating to a lot of people. They're like, I want to try this AR thing. So if it's something new, lean into the new things in an interesting way. I think also where we were lacking, and it's important, and it's really important, is there's a fantasy storytelling. There's an entertainment, what studios do really well in the way that they position certain things. And it's okay if you want to do that to get people in at the beginning. But I say, 3 months of free people and all the lessons that get to that would lead into more consistent ticket sales. But like I said, as a business, we had 110,000 people by the end of it. It's a shame because in theory we should not have gone out of business.
Yeah,
but,
people can hear that
it reached a point where it's tough.
And when you're and be like, what? 110,000 people at $20 to $30 a ticket? What the hell?
I can't share the numbers, but if I tell you our revenues for the first 6 months were really, really, if a tech company showed those numbers, VCs would be tripping over themselves to come in. We were, before VCs, like Anderson just came in with the 68 million or 63 million, whatever it was, with Sandbox. That's the first traditional VC to come in with a location based. and so
nobody, and by the way, nobody else in
think
the VC community understands why yet. They're still shaking their heads.
I'm me too. I believe there's an announcement coming out this week too.
They just
Another
did,
funding.
yeah, they raised another
announcement around
11 million
Topop.
on top of that from celebrities. Like, yeah.
Celebrities. Okay, good. So that's the other thing. Celebrities. Okay. No, you definitely want to find a key influencer, but the thing with an LBE that's all age groups, it's hard. You got to find the key influencers in all age groups, including your 6-year-olds, right? Or your 12-year-olds and your 18-year-olds, and they each want something different. And one of the things that the teens and the millennials want is colorful social sharing content. They're there for an experience, but if they can't share it out, if it looks too artsy, it's like, nah, that's an older audience.
So like the HoloLens experience that really wasn't. It was difficult to share that. I know you guys did some videos and stuff. How did that go? And the art stuff, how shareable was that? Were people Instagramming and tagging you guys with social?
Some, not as much as you'd think, especially as it was really photogenic. So, it's. I think we can't rely on if you make it socially shareable, they're going to share it. That's gone. It's a tough one. I mean, there's so many lessons that I know now going into something. I could spend a fraction of what I did and demonstrate the success or more today. I don't think I want to ever operate another venue. It's so stressful because unless you're building the building from scratch, that's another reason most investors don't want to touch something like that, is because they don't know. You don't know if the roof's going to cave in. Or you've got a river in your building, it might leak downstairs, which happened to us, by the way. So you can imagine some of this stuff. I mean, so we're talking like costs that came out of nowhere. And it was just, it's sad. I feel sad because it was a very expensive experiment, but I think it did such good for the industry in so many ways. I mean, the lessons of that also proving, by the way, mixed reality. I mean, location-based AR is a thing. And I don't care if the HoloLens One's view.
L-bar.
Huh? It's a thing. I'm telling you. No, it's a thing, and I think it's here to stay. And I think as the devices become a little more cost effective, although I was hanging out with oh my god, I'm completely blanking right now. I'll come back to that in a second. How am I blanking on his name? But I found out that the cost of the backpacks and the whole get up for a location-based VR is more expensive per unit. And I was just like, whoa, okay, so I can't use that as an excuse for why I ran out of money. Because in theory, I mean, we should have been comparing to some of that, because that was where the success was happening, right?
You don't need 50 of them or 100 of them, right? You have 8 or 10 in most of those locations. So,
yes, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This is true too. And there was a question earlier of how many lenses, how many broke. We probably actually only broke in total about 10. One of the things we didn't know early enough, and I'm not sure if Microsoft told us, or if they knew, or who knew, or I'm not putting it on anyone except us, is don't use alcohol wipes on devices. They generally wear and tear. Use other, I mean, so the headband
don't
on the
use
HoloLens,
wipes either,
the alcohol. Or that. Definitely not. There are non-alcohol based sterile wipes that are made for these things that can be used, that won't damage devices. The HoloLens 2's field of view, I mean, it's more the aspect ratio that makes the field of view.
I just put a link in the chat if you want ultrasound wipes. They're called Sono. They work really, really well. And they're cheap, and you can get them on Amazon. I also want to go back, and there's people were asking about the WordPress for VR platform. And I do want to go back to that. It's called Varwin, and I just put the link in the chat, VARWIN.com. Check it out. Like, literally, we put together a very simple VR experience with a dancing robot and a button and a light bulb in 30 seconds. And I put on the headset, and I went in, and I pushed the button, and the robot starts dancing, and the light bulb went on. Like, it was 30 seconds, drag and drop. It was amazing. And so, get a Quest and go build some cool VR shit. So what's next for you? You're obviously going to open a whole chain of retail locations, it sounds like.
Woo, yeah, I'm on it. That's it. Who wants in? No, let's not do that. Right now, I'm consulting. Mesh is my own consultancy. It's me, effectively. My strength is network and connecting the dots. I've still got a little PTSD. I'm not sure. It's a hard one. I actually have never been at a place in my career where I'm like, and then what's next? And I think part of it is that the 2-year startup, it's such a adrenaline rush. It's such a, you come off it with this high and then you crash a little bit when you just pull, and then you, and there's a pace, there's a pace that, I don't know. It's really hard. How do you go back to a normal job? What does that even look like? And
it's really interesting. I had a couple of those, and I know LaserStorm, which was my first big success. And when I wound up, selling it off and shutting parts of it down, it took me a couple of years to recover from that. Like it was because I feel like, and I think this happens more when you're younger and less when you're older, but your identity is so wrapped up in your business that when your business shuts down, you lose part of your identity and you go through a bit of an existential crisis. And I think it's really normal for entrepreneurs to go through that.
Yeah, maybe it's, I really want to stay in this space. I definitely want to continue driving XR, especially on the mixed reality side. I think there's a lot of good in it, and a lot of good to be had. Yeah, I don't know what that looks like. I think I kind of, want to stay open and create experiences. We're going to be I'm doing a handful of experiential activations for different companies using different tech. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted of where things go. If anyone on here wants to,
what's up? So how do they get in touch with you if they want to connect?
Yeah, my email. Actually, I'll type it in here. It might be easier. This is my email.
Go ahead and read it
thanks.
for the replay.
And Tanya,
go ahead and read it for people on replay that don't get to see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Leila spelled the correct way. Leila at Mesh Connects. That's meshconnects.com.
Cool.
Meshconnects.com.
And it's fine. You figured out you're on LinkedIn as well.
Selling up. Tanya did. I'm sorry.
Apologize. I love that. If you need a pet sitter, if you ever need a pet sitter and you go away, let me know. I do that too. So
yeah,
Leila, it's time to open the bottle of vodka. It's 7:30 here in Moscow. We're gonna drink some vodka, and I'm gonna go have some dinner, and I think we're moving to this bi-weekly. So 2 weeks, I have a really interesting webinar coming up. Ben Davenport from vArsenal has agreed to join me.
Oh, cool.
And there's been a lot of stuff floating around about them and an indictment and all of this stuff. And so we're going to try to clear up as much of that as we can. And their product has been really successful in arcades. And so IAPA's coming up, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to get his side of the story out there. So back in 2 weeks. Next week is Halloween. And so I'll be out trick-or-treating. We're gonna move to an every other week cadence. And also stay tuned. I'm going to start releasing the webinars as podcasts, 20-minute increments. So I've got about 100 podcasts coming out, hopefully towards the end of the year. And then I did send out a survey. I'll send it out again. If you guys have any suggestions on how to make the webinar better, how to make it more engaging, how to drive live engagement, drop me a line. And Leila, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's hard to do these retrospectives sometimes, and I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it too. Thank you for having me. I want to share these lessons. There's no need for anyone else to go through this. I mean, there's always going to be new lessons, but let's avoid, a chunk of them by learning from us and others.
Yeah, and look, the amazing thing that I can say with all of this gray hair is we learn very little from our successes. Where we learn is from our stumbles. And so, and it's critical that we share them. And I really, really appreciate your sharing. So, and I know everybody else does too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. Too. Enjoy your podcast.
All right. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day. Bye, everyone.